What I'd like to do first of all, before we get into what it is and what it means, let's take a look at what it isn't and what it doesn't mean. Anybody familiar with this?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man.
Okay, this is so,
That was a big deal that somebody told me, look at these sites, look at these sites.
oh yeah,
It was all over there.
yeah. Oh,
Huge.
oh, just last year.
Was it last year?
Yeah, 2017, September 23rd. Yeah, it should have been longer than that. It should have been. Yeah, this kind of nonsense is just, oh my aching back. Okay, it's just, how many are not familiar with this silly thing?
I've seen it.
You seen it? Okay, Josh. Josh doesn't get out much. Okay, I want to tell you what this is about. The great September 23rd, 2017 prophecy of Revelation 12. Okay. Whoops, look what showed up there. And for good reason. This comes out of one of their stupid websites, okay? Follow with me here. The astronomical alignment that so many are now pointing to comes from a literal reading of Revelation 12, 1 through 5, which describes a sign in the sky involving a woman who is crowned with 12 stars, clothed with the sun, having the moon under her feet, and giving birth to a male child. This text itself does not describe the sign as a parable or illustration, which validates the view that this passage is, in fact, describing a real astronomical event visible to the inhabitants of the earth. That includes us. Complete with real sun, moon, and stars. Each of the elements described in the sign have significant prophetic and allegorical meaning, as will be shown, but the passage itself describes first and foremost a real sign. And so any accurate interpretation must begin with that premise. Lacking any evidence that the Apostle John was not describing a sign visible in the sky, as the text plainly says, the burden of proof is entirely upon those who would argue that this passage is only pure allegory. So they're really looking for the sun, moon, and stars to give us a sign. Okay. Here, I got a sign for you. This is the thing. Okay. Hang on. Okay. Maybe you didn't know this, that on November 20th in 2016, the planet Jupiter entered the womb of the constellation Virgo, where it will remain for exactly, are you ready for this? 42 weeks. Now, that is the precise length of a long human gestation. The 42-week gestation is interesting in light of the 42 generations from Abraham to Christ, Matthew 1:17, and the 42 months that transpire in each of the first and second halves of the tribulation. Revelation 11:2, Revelation 13:5, Daniel 7:25, among others. A crown of 12 stars above Virgo's head is rare, but this is rarer still. In order for Jupiter to remain in the womb for such a lengthy and precise amount of time, it undergoes an extremely rare retrograde motion in the constellation. The planet actually appears to make a giant circle within the womb during this time before exiting on September 9th, 2017. The sign in Revelation 12 completes in verse 5 after the child is born, and likewise 2 weeks after Jupiter exits the womb, it moves down the celestial birthing canal, and the complete sign is formed in the sky. It could be said that the woman is in labor for 2 weeks as the baby moves out of the womb and through the canal. I am telling you that literally tens and hundreds of thousands of people bought into this. Okay? That's probably, yeah, I don't know how I don't know if their books sold or whatever. But, oh, my aching back. And people, anyway. I just want you to be aware. If you didn't see it, this is for your information, for your edification. I don't know what else to say. Let's take a look at Revelation 12. Let's see what it really says, okay? First two verses, and a great sign appeared in heaven. A woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. And she was with child, and she cried out, being in labor and in pain, to give birth. Now, there's a lot of things here. What people don't understand, first of all, almost all prophecy is symbolic. It's totally symbolic. We've been going over that over and over again. It's proven itself to be true. And also, these things can extend over long periods of time. All right? We want, if you'll pardon the word, a human gestation period of 42 weeks, right? No. These things take place over time. And a lot of times, it's going to go back into history so it can tell you the expanse of what will happen in the future. And that's what's happening here. The identity of the woman is found in her description in verse 1. She is a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and on her head a garland of 12 stars. Now the marks of the sun, moon, and 12 stars are undoubtedly a picture of Israel. And I want to make sure this is completely understood before we move on. First of all, it is in Genesis 37, verses 9 and 10, where this is about Joseph's dream, if you'll recall. Now he had still another dream and related it to his brothers and said, Lo, I have had still another dream, and behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars were bowing down to me. So Joseph is portraying himself as the 12th star, and the sun, moon, and 11 brothers, say Mama and Daddy and the 11 brothers were bowing down to him. Now his mother was already passed away at this time, but still this is what this was about. And he related it to his father and to his brothers, and his father rebuked him and said to him, What is this dream that you've had? Shall I and your mother and your brothers actually bow ourselves down before you to the ground? Well, Jacob knew what it meant. He knew what it meant. Abraham was told his descendants would be as numerous as what? Numerous as the stars. In Genesis 22, starting at verse 15, then the angel of Yahweh called to Abraham a second time from heaven. And he said, By myself I have sworn, declared Yahweh, because you have done this thing and have not withheld your son, your only son. Indeed, I will greatly bless you, and I will greatly multiply your seed as the stars of the heavens, and as the sand which is on the seashore, and your seed shall possess the gate of their enemies. And in your seed all the nations of the earth shall be blessed, because you have obeyed my voice. Isaac was told this same thing. In Genesis 26, verse 4, And I will multiply your descendants as the stars of the heaven, and will give your descendants all these lands, and by your descendants all the nations of the earth shall be blessed. Now Moses was told that in fulfillment of the promise to Abraham, his descendants have now been multiplied as the stars of the sky. In Deuteronomy 1:10, Yahweh your Elohim has multiplied you, and behold, you are this day as the stars of heaven for multitude. Now, how many were there at this time? You know, there was a number that they took a census. How many were there? Remember about? You know, it's kind of interesting. You're not told exactly. We have the number of the men above 20. How many were there? A lot more than that. Okay, pretty big number. There's a reason for that, I do believe. How many stars were in the sky? Yeah, right. You tell me. That's exactly right. Go out there and just start counting them and see how far you get, and then you miss a few. Trust me. It's a lot more behind those that you don't see, too. So that's the reasoning behind the whole thing. Now, Daniel was told that at the resurrection, Israel would shine like the stars of the sky. In Daniel 12, the first 3 verses, now at that time, Michael, the great prince who stands guard over the sons of your people, will arise. And there will be a time of distress such as never occurred since there was a nation until that time. And at that time, your people, everyone who's found written in the book, will be rescued. Many of those who sleep in the dust of the ground will awake, these to everlasting life. See, a very plain description of the resurrection. But the others to disgrace and everlasting contempt. And those who have insight will shine brightly like the brightness of the expanse of heaven. And those who lead the many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever. You know what would be really great is if we had a prophecy that was fulfilled that described Israel as the stars of heaven. Now, wouldn't that be the nail that just absolutely says without a doubt that's it? if such a passage existed. If we only had one that's already been fulfilled, we could look back and prove it. Well, guess what? We have one. It's in Daniel chapter 8. And this Daniel chapter 8 is about the Persian Empire and the Greek Empire. And this isn't during the time of Daniel. He was, he was there at the beginning of the Persian Empire. But out of this Greek Empire, and you have this goat that defeats this ram. The ram was a Persian Empire. The goat with one big noticeable horn, which by the way was Alexander the Great. Ram hits the ram, knocks it out, and there was no one to help the ram. And it says the goat thing, the horn was broken off, and Alexander died. He died at a very young age. Some like 32 years old. He conquered the whole world. He was quite the military general. But his kingdom was divided up into 4 different sections because the generals didn't know what to do with the kingdom. And we read in verse 9, and out of one of them came a rather small horn, which grew exceedingly great toward the south, toward the east, and toward the beautiful land. Now that rather small horn here, it rises out of the 3rd kingdom out of the 4. And this little horn came out of Syria from the Seleucid dynasty. He was Antiochus IV, or Antiochus Epiphanes. The son of Antiochus the Great. He is sometimes called Epimanes, the madman, which is what that means. Now Antiochus came to the throne in 175 BC, and he attacked Jerusalem. It was against him that the Maccabees raised up their big revolt, which is why they celebrate Hanukkah. It was the defeat of Antiochus Epiphanes. Okay, which is why I wanted to bring that into this earlier. Now, Antiochus was a terrible guy. He hated the Jews. He tried to exterminate them. He placed an image of Jupiter in the holy place in the temple of Jerusalem. He was a Jupiter worshiper. He poured pig's blood over the holy vessels. Okay, this was a bad guy. He's not an image of the Antichrist to come, which is what so many say. There is no Antichrist to come. All right? Antichrist is one who denies Messiah. That's all. John tells us what it means exactly. Look at verse 10. And it grew up to the host of heaven and caused some of the host and some of the stars to fall to the ground, and it trampled them down. You know, to describe this to you, the statement is very simple to interpret. Antiochus grew up to the host of heaven, which is what the sun, moon, and stars represent, and he killed a lot of them. Antiochus also captured Jerusalem and the temple. Look what's in the book of Maccabees, by the way, records this, which is, it's an apocryphal book. It's in the Catholic Bible. It's not really scripture, but it is good history. And it's in 2 Maccabees 5. Look at verses 11 through 14. When these happenings were reported to the king, he thought that Judah was in revolt. Raging like a wild animal, he set out from Egypt and took Jerusalem by storm. He ordered his soldiers to cut down without mercy those whom they met and to slay those who took refuge in their houses. There was a massacre of young and old, a killing of women and children, a slaughter of virgins and infants. In the space of 3 days, 80,000 were lost. 40,000 meeting a violent death, and the same number being sold into slavery. That's what Antiochus Epiphanes did, and that's what that verse means. The host of heaven, it grew up to the host of heaven, caused some of the host and some of the stars to fall to the earth, and it trampled them down. Then in verse 11, it even magnified itself to be equal with the commander of the host, and it removed the regular sacrifice from him, and the place of his sanctuary was thrown down. Antiochus, we talked about that. He was a worshiper of Zeus, and he ordered all of Judah to worship Zeus under the penalty of death. He chose for himself the title Theos Epiphanes. That means God manifest. That was his title that he gave himself. Antiochus had coins made with his likeness as the head of Zeus, and Antiochus took control of the temple and erected a statue of Zeus in the temple. So, we have a fulfilled prophecy from 175 BC that used the stars of heaven as being Israel. Any questions on that? By the way, we have Daniel 8 on our YouTube page if you want to look at that and go over it. It's a fascinating chapter. Now, this woman, it says that she's a great sign in heaven. It's obvious this woman is a personification of Israel. That's what she is. Now, it's Israel that gave physical birth to Messiah, and that's what we're seeing here. We have Israel that is there and is giving birth to Messiah. Paul writes that Israel is the one that Elohim used to bring forth his son and his glory in many ways. In Romans 9, verses 4 and 5, who are the Israelites, to whom belongs the adoption as sons and the glory and the covenants and the giving of the Torah and the temple service and the promises, whose are the fathers, and from whom is the Messiah according to the flesh, who is over all, Elohim, blessed forever. Amen. Now the term here we see in Revelation 2, it says, she cried out, being in labor and in pain. That also is a reference to Israel. When we look at Isaiah 66, starting at verse 7, speaking of Israel, before she travailed, she brought forth. Before her pain came, she gave birth to a boy. Who has heard such a thing? Who has seen such things? What's that referring to? The same thing Revelation is. Messiah. Adds to it, can a land be born in one day? Yeah. May 15th, 1948. Can a nation be brought forth all at once? Yeah. As soon as Zion travailed, she also brought forth her sons. Shall I bring to the point of birth and not give delivery, says Yahweh? Or shall I, who gives delivery, shut the womb, says your Elohim? The woman spoken of here with the sun, moon, and 12 stars is Israel. Verse 3. Any questions on that before we move on? Did the Maccabees passage make sense? Antiochus Epiphanes. Verse 3 of Revelation 12. And another sign appeared in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his heads were 7 diadems. So we have another sign that's in heaven. The red dragon is clearly identified for us just in verse 9, and we'll just take a look at it. And the great dragon who was thrown down, the serpent of old who is called the devil and Satan, who deceives the whole world, he was thrown down to the earth, and his angels were thrown down with him. Now, where in Scripture do we know that Satan was the serpent in the garden? Where are we told that?
Genesis.
Actually, it doesn't say that in Genesis. It's only there. It's not till Revelation that we're told that. That's the first time that we're told for sure. I mean, you could deduce that from other evidence, but we're not told for sure until then. Now, the serpent here has the same traits, the 7 heads, the 10 horns, like the beast that comes after him. So, you see, the beast is modeled after Satan himself. And who's the beast? Islam, and we'll talk about that next week with Revelation 13. We'll prove that beyond any shadow of a doubt. 7 heads denotes the 7 kingdoms that he's led against Judah and Jerusalem. And those are Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Persia, Greece, Rome, and Islam. Those are its 7 heads. The 10 horns are 10 groups of people who comprise up the final beast and lead the Muslim empire. That's in Psalm 83. We'll go over that next week. The fact that the 7 heads and 10 horns on the dragon appear before the appearance of the beast shows that the heads and the horns of the beast existed before the beast itself existed, which they did. 7 crowns on its head. Now that represents kingly rulership and authority taken by the dragon. In verse 4, and his tail swept away 1/3 of the stars of heaven and threw them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman who was about to give birth, so that when she gave birth, he might devour her child. Most commentators claim this is referring to the angelic host of heaven who were battling against Elohim. That's incorrect. What are the stars again? Israel. The stars are Israel. So is it possible at this time they're puppy dogs, the stars? No. The stars are always Israel. It says a third of the stars on the woman's crown on her head were thrown to the earth, or thrown down to the ground. So it's saying that a part of Israel was thrown to the ground and killed. Just like it said in Daniel 8 that we just read. It said the same thing. They were thrown to the ground. They were thrown down and trampled. And we look at the time frame here. And the dragon stood before the woman who was about to give birth, so that when she gave birth, he might devour her child. Now, so this is happening at the time of Messiah. When were Israelites destroyed at the time of Messiah? Do you remember what Herod said when he found out that there was going to be a birth? What did he say? 2 years old and younger in this big area right here, which included Bethlehem. That's what this is referring to. That's in Matthew 2, verses 16 and 17. Then when Herod saw that he'd been tricked by the Magi, he became very enraged and sent and slew all the male children who were in Bethlehem and all its environs, from 2 years old and under, according to the time which he had ascertained from the Magi. Then that which is spoken through Jeremiah the prophet was fulfilled. Now, we don't know how many babies were killed at this time. We're not told. We do know that it was enough to have been prophesied to have made Rachel cry. Now, why would Rachel cry? Because between her and her handmaid, they had 4 sons of Israel. And her handmaid's children were considered hers, which is 1/3. Okay? The son of Rachel's handmaid, like I said, were considered her sons. Oh, and in verse 18, and a voice was heard in Ramah, weeping in great mourning, Rachel weeping for her children, and she refused to be comforted because there were no more. In Genesis 30, verse 3, and she said, here is my maid Bilhah, go into her that she may bear on my knees, that through her I too may have children. So, what does all this passage mean? It means that at the time of the birth of Messiah, Satan killed some of the sons of Israel and Judah. Satan did this through the command of Herod. The Roman soldiers, you know how they killed the little boys, 2 years old and under?
Grab by the feet, slam them in a pole, right?
Grab them by the feet, slam them into rocks and trees. That's how they'd kill them. Or thrown down to the ground, as was prophesied. Or as was told here. Actually, it's after the fact this was told. The dragon tried to devour the man-child. The man-child is obviously Yeshua, Messiah. Satan tried to destroy Yeshua through the promised line since sin came into the world. That's what he'd been trying to do. We have numerous examples of that throughout history. Verse 5, and she gave birth to a son, a male child, who was to rule all the nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up to Elohim and to his throne. See, what we have here is kind of an acceleration of time a little bit. She gave birth to a son, and that was Yeshua. And he's the one that's supposed to rule the nations with a rod of iron. That's in Psalm 2, by the way. And he died, he resurrected, and he ascended. Okay? That's what this is saying. Verse 6. And by the way, this is all chronological. And the woman fled into the wilderness where she had a place prepared by Elohim so that she might be nourished for 1,260 days. So she flew into the wilderness. She fled into the wilderness for 1,260 days. Days. That word for days, by the way, the Greek word is hemira, and it could mean years also. And the way you can determine whether it's days or years is by the context. Now, the translators did not have 1,260 years in mind here. All right? Regardless, a day is a year in prophecy, remember? So, since a day equals a year, and a year equals 364.868 days, this is the same number we had from last chapter. It comes out to 1,258.71 solar years. Now, when were they told to flee into the wilderness? Whenever you see the abomination of desolation, the time for Israel to flee in the wilderness began in 691 CE according to Yeshua in Matthew 24:15. Therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation, which was spoken of through Daniel the prophet, standing in the holy place, let the reader understand. Then let those who are in Judea flee into the mountains. Now, we're going to go over that. One thing we haven't done in this study is look at the identity of the abomination of desolation. That's the Dome of the Rock. In Daniel chapter 12, it says at the very end, from the time that the regular sacrifice is abolished and the abomination of desolation is set up, there will be 1,290 days. Okay? I'm not going to go through the math for you, but if you convert 1,290 days, use 360-day years, you come up with a number somewhat less. When sacrifices were done away with during Daniel's day, and add the 1,290 years, it takes you to 691 AD. Exactly. And the abomination of desolation is set up. That is the Dome of the Rock. And Yeshua says, when you see it, what was spoken of through Daniel the prophet, the abomination of desolation, standing at the holy place, let the reader of Daniel understand what the abomination of desolation is. If you see it, then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Why? Why should they flee to the mountains? Or else they're going to be exterminated. Why didn't they just stay there in Judea? Islam would wipe them out. How do you save them from Islam? Scatter them. Europe and the West and other places, all over the world. That's exactly right. Now, if you add the 1,258.71 years to the 691.7 CE, which is when the Dome of the Rock was built, we get to 1950. And we talked about this last time. That's when the law of return was put into effect. And then it says every Jew has the right to come to this country as an Ola. So that is how Elohim preserved the Jewish people, by scattering them and then bringing them back when he gave them that land. So, what else happened about the time of the abomination of desolation? You know, there's something else that happened here. So he tells us here that the woman, she flees out into the wilderness. Now, when that abomination of desolation is there, about that same time, something else happens. About the time that the people flee, something else happens. We're told in the next passage. And there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels waging war with the dragon. And the dragon and his angels waged war. And they were not strong enough, and there was no longer a place found for them in heaven. You see, now Satan has had access to Elohim. We're told that in the book of Job. Chapter 1, starting in verse 6. Now there was a day when the sons of Elohim came to present themselves before Yahweh, and Satan also came among them. By the way, this is probably a feast day. That's what this is referring to. It's probably one of the 3 days of the year that all the men were to gather in Jerusalem or with the tabernacle. And that's probably what it's referring to. And Satan was among them. And Yahweh said to Satan, "From where do you come?" And Satan answered Yahweh and said, "From roaming about on the earth and walking around on it." And Yahweh said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job? For there is no one like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man, fearing Elohim and turning away from evil." Well, but that access was put to a stop. That access he had with Elohim. He's cast out of heaven before just close to the time of the abomination of desolation, or a little bit before. This probably happened during the time that Muhammad had his alleged vision from the angel Gabriel. Are you familiar with that? That was in 621, or thereabouts. And he has this vision, and he says the angel Gabriel came, and that's when he started the Muslim religion. Within less than 70 years, the abomination of desolation was built. This was the sign that the remnant of Israel was to flee from Jerusalem into the rest of the world, where Elohim could provide for them and preserve their observance of Torah. Verse 9 of Revelation 12, "And the great dragon was thrown down, the serpent of old, who was called the devil and Satan, who deceives the whole world. He was thrown down to the earth, and his angels were thrown down with him." It's at this time the Muslim religion was formed in all its fierceness. He's deceived all the nations around Israel. That's what it means by the entire world. And has them convinced unto death that Satan is actually Elohim in some kind of uncorrupted form called Allah.
Why did Elohim allow this?
It's part of the punishment of Israel. And it's all part of, it's a long story. It started in the Garden of Eden. It started when Israel didn't evacuate that whole land to get all of the other people out of the land of Canaan. They weren't obedient. Remember in Ezekiel just the other night, we read about the things that they'd been doing in the temple. They had false idols in the temple. They were doing sun worship. They were... Yeah, they were doing things in the dark so Elohim couldn't see them. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yep, all these things add up. Verses 10 and 11 of Revelation 12. And I heard a loud voice in heaven saying, now the salvation and the power and the kingdom of our Elohim and the authority of his Messiah have come. For the accuser of our brethren has been thrown down, who accuses them before our Elohim day and night. I think he got tired of hearing him. Okay? And they overcame him because of the blood of the Lamb and because of the word of their testimony, and they did not love their life even to death. The ones persecuted by Satan overcame by the blood of the Lamb. The number of Jewish people that have been martyred by Muslim people is substantial, and it's still growing even today. And other believers in Messiah and followers of Torah too. Verse 12. For this reason rejoice, O heavens, and you who dwell in them. Woe to the earth and the sea, because the devil has come down to you, having great wrath, and knowing that he has only a short time. Well, this is interesting. There are two reactions to Satan being cast out of heaven. In heaven, it's, woohoo! He's out of here. Oh, but look where he's going. Woe to the people on earth, because he has great wrath. But here's the only good part here. He only has a short time, they say. He only has a short time. Well, it's been going since 621 AD. I don't know what you consider a short time. In the big scope of things, it's a short time, I guess.
What's the time from 1950 to 67 and forward? That's really short.
Yeah, that's true.
Because that was the mark when he turned his face back.
Right, when he turned back toward Israel, yeah. Verse 13, when the dragon saw that he was thrown down to the earth, he persecuted the woman who gave birth to the male child. Satan has been trying to destroy Israel through the Muslim Empire for almost 1,350 years. Okay? Notice the woman still around. Verse 14, and the two wings of the great eagle were given to the woman in order that she might fly into the wilderness to her place, where she was nourished for a time, times and a half, from the presence of the serpent. It sounds strangely symbolic, but Israel has had this protection from Elohim previously, where it says the two wings of a great eagle were given to the woman. If you'll recall in Exodus 9, verse 4, we read, you yourselves have seen what I did to the Egyptians, how I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. That was their fleeing from Egypt, is described in the same way. They did not escape Egypt on their own effort. And they did not escape Satan by their own works either. Now there's times and a half. That's that 1,260 days. Okay, it's a year, 2 years and a half. That's 3.5 years. With 360-day years, that's 1,260. And that's how long they were in the wilderness of the world. They were in the world that long being preserved. They were being nourished by the Father from the presence of Satan, from the Middle East during that time. Uh-oh. I'm missing verses 15 and 16. All right. I'll read it to you. And the serpent poured water like a river out of his mouth after the woman, so that he might cause her to be swept away by the flood. Okay, water being poured out like a river. That's armies. That's always a reference to armies. Okay, now what armies went after Israel? Well, it happened in 1948. It happened in 1950 again. It happened in 1967. It happened in 1971, the Yom Kippur War. They tried to declare war on them on Yom Kippur. That's evil. That's pure evil. They thought they could get them on that day. Didn't work. That's the water being poured out by the dragon. And many other times they've tried it. They literally try to sweep her away, like it says. But the armies of Satan have had very little success against Israel. Very little. But that's been their quest since 1948, is to drive Israel into the sea. They want to be. He wants them swept away with the flood. Verse 16, and the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened its mouth and drank up the river which the dragon poured out of his mouth. So the help Israel's gotten comes from Elohim himself. It's as if the earth opened up its mouth and drank up the armies of the Muslim Empire. And by the way, that's the only explanation for the miraculous victories that little Israel's gotten. All right? That's miracles from the Father. Lastly, verse 17. And the dragon was enraged with the woman and went off to make war with the rest of her offspring, who keep the commandments of Elohim and hold to the testimony of Yeshua. So the dragon made war with the rest of her offspring, who keep the commandments of Elohim and hold to the testimony of Yeshua. This is a reference to Jews and Torah believers everywhere. So it couldn't attack. Here's the thing. They couldn't get to Israel with their armies in 1948, in 1950, in 1968, and in 67, and in 1971. Couldn't do it. So where's Islam attacking now? Now it's going after the rest of their offspring. The rest of the world. That's where she's going. That's where he's going. All over the world now. And we're going to read, too, when we talk about the bowls, that there's another bottomless pit with keys that open the gate. Okay, and that's the one that lets Islam out of the Middle East. And they're here now to stay and grow and to destroy. That's why they're here. Why was New York City hit at 9/11? Commerce, World Trade Center, and that's very good. That commerce is a big thing with them. They like to attack commerce of the Kafir. The Jewish population is in New York City. That's correct. At one time, there were more Jews in New York City than there was in Israel. Yeah, doing well. But, once again, that's part of the blessing. Now, comparing this chapter with Matthew 24, let's solidify this time frame, okay? Take a look here in Matthew 24, starting at verse 15. Therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation, which was spoken of through Daniel the prophet, standing in the holy place, let the reader understand. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let him who is on his housetop not go down to get things that are in his house. Now look at Revelation 12, verses 13 and 14. And when the dragon saw that he was thrown down to the earth, he persecuted the woman who gave birth to the male child. And the two wings of the great eagle were given to the woman in order that she might fly into the wilderness to her place. That she might fly into the wilderness to her place. Then let those who are in the Judea flee to the mountains. Let him who's on his housetop not go down to get things out of his house, where she was nourished for times and a half from the presence of the serpent. And let him who's in the field not turn back to get his cloak, but woe to those who are with child and to those who nurse babes in those days. But pray that your flight may not be in the winter or on a Sabbath. For then there will be great tribulation, such as has not occurred since the beginning of the world until now, nor ever shall be. And then Matthew 20 and 21, but pray that your flight may not be in the winter or on a Sabbath, for there will be great tribulation, such as has not occurred since the beginning of the world until now, nor ever shall. In verse 22, unless those days had been cut short, no life would have been saved, but for the sake of the elect, those days shall be cut short. Revelation 12:12. For this reason rejoice, O heavens, that you may dwell in them. Woe to the earth and the sea, because the devils come down to you, having great wrath, knowing that he has only a short time.